Hello, and welcome to the Sovereign Collective podcast, where we bring you real, raw truth for your self-empowerment. I'm your host, Sasha Calavoda, and I believe that you can stand on your own 2 feet, but that you don't have to do it alone. I love learning from people who continually strive to raise the bar, to go against mainstream thinking, and who dare to question the general consensus. People who risk being ridiculed or even risk the loss of their professional status as they bravely question the common narratives and challenge the rest of us to expand our minds and to reconsider what we think we already know. Join me in learning how to take control of your health and your mind so that you can have the energy to think more clearly and the confidence to step up and take responsibility for all aspects of your life. We promise to never censor here because I believe you are strong enough to hear the real, raw truth to make up your own mind. If you like what you find here at the Sovereign Collective podcast, then please share with your friends and family. I so appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And now, on to the show. Hello, everyone. Sasha here, another interview for the Sovereign Collective podcast. And I am once again delighted to be with Roz Isbel. She's coming to us from Australia, and we're going to talk human design again. And we did have an initial interview, episode 46, where we got the basics of human design. And then we talked primarily about raising our kids to respect their human design rather than going against the very nature. I had a conversation actually with a friend the other day, and she was mentioning she was that daydreamer. She was that daydreamer that could look out the window for hours in class, and she made a deal with her mom. If she paid attention for 3 weeks, she would get something. And then she did that for 3 weeks, and then she went back to her daydreaming out the window. And turns out she was supposed to be daydreaming out the window. So Roz talked to us about raising our kids, teaching kids how they might express in classrooms based on the very nature of their human designs. It's super insightful. And of course, always one of my big goals is to raise healthy, well-adjusted kids. But today we are going to be talking about human design in business, human design in creating that success in your life. But first, we're going to have Roz give us a quick little brush up overview on what human design is. And we'll give all her details later in the interview. If you want to work with Roz as well to find out how she did, because she knows this stuff. I got a reading with Roz last week, and I know it's like the tip of the iceberg. There's so much to go into on our charts, and they're so insightful. And Roz, because you did point out that I even in my chart that I like comfortable clothing. I opted to stay in my comfy clothes of the day today and not change for the interview. So anyways, thank you, Roz. Again, always a pleasure to connect with you, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me again, Sasha. And I am so pleased to hear that you are wearing your comfortable clothing and being true to your sovereign self.
I am.
Because
Absolutely.
it's so important that we feel comfortable, that we can be ourselves. And that's the beauty of human design, because it helps to show you who you are, which might sound like, well, surely I know who I am. Well, some people might say that. A lot of people are actually asking that question, that very question. But human design allows you to see on paper who you came here to be. And then from there, you can feel into what feels great and what you already know to be true. And maybe do a little bit of work on the areas that don't feel so true. Obviously, once you've come to terms with what you've been told and you're okay with it, there's a lot of dogma out there at the moment. There's a lot of people telling you should be particular ways, and human design could be taken as just another piece of dogma. But the beautiful thing about having a reading is that you do get to realize that it's a snapshot of where you were at the time of your birth, according to the celestial objects and the imprint that they had upon you.
Mm-hmm.
What human design teaches us is, at a very basic level, that there are 5 types. There are 5 different types of energies, and every human on the planet is one of those 5 types. So there's pure generators, there's manifesting generators, there's projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. And you and it I and every one of your listeners and every single person is one of those types.
Mhm.
And if you're curious to know, you can actually go onto, well, there's many, many websites that will offer you a free human design chart. The one that I like, just because it's simple and easy, not because it's the best, is mybodygraph.com. So if you're listening to this now, just and you don't know what type you are, just pop on to mybodygraph.com and you'll find out your type. And each of those 5 types are designed to use their energy in a different way. So the first 2 types I mentioned, the generator types, the pure generators and the manifesting generators, which interestingly both you and I are,
Mhm.
we have a particular energy type that is very energetic, that actually has a lot of energy, physical energy, and can do a lot of things, can keep going through a lot. And we represent nearly 70% of the population. Those 2 energy types represent nearly 70% of the population. And the aside from having a lot of energy, another thing that the generator types have in common is the fact that they are designed to respond to things in their external reality, to make things happen. So we can't just decide, oh, that seems like a good thing, I might go and do that. We need to have things show up for us in our outer reality, that is outside of our heads, and then we respond to those as we decide whether or not using our sacral, using our gut reaction, as to whether or not we're going to go ahead and do it. So they're the 2 generator types. There's some other differences between the pure generators and the manifesting generators, and I won't go into that now because we talked about that in the last podcast.
Mhm.
And then you also have the projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, and combined they make up nearly 30%, or a little bit more than 30% of the population. And they don't have as much energy. So you will know people who are manifestors, projectors, and reflectors who don't have a lot of energy, and a lot of them don't know that they're that type, that energy type. They don't know that they're not designed to go all day, to work all day, to, just have this, ever ready bunny energy that allows them to keep going until the job's finished. They're not designed that way. And once they find that out about themselves, their whole world changes. Once they realize that they aren't designed to keep going, they go, oh, now I understand why this hasn't worked for me, or why I'm always tired, why I'm always sick, those sorts of things. And so the manifestors and the projectors and the reflectors are each designed to make decisions differently. The manifestors are the only type, the 10% of the population are the only type that are designed to just get an idea and go with it, provided that it
Right.
feels good in their body. Projectors are about 21, 22% of the population, and they are designed to wait for invitations. They're very, very wise, innately wise people, and they are designed to be recognized by other people for their wisdom and for the knowledge that they have for the other, and then have that knowledge invited out of them. And there's more to it than just a couple of sentences. Like I said, it's revelatory once a projector understands that's how they're designed to operate. They're really designed just to keep their vibration high and to serve the rest of the world by being this fountain of knowledge and fountain of wisdom. And then we have the reflectors, and reflectors are only 1% of the population. They are very, very beautiful beings. We're all very beautiful beings, of course, but they're particularly beautiful in that they are reflecting back at us what is going on for us. And they have to wait a whole month before they can make a decision that is correct, that they know will be correct for them, because their main source of anchoring into what is correct for them is the moon and the lunar cycle. So they need to go through a whole lunar cycle before they can be sure that something is actually correct for them. So that's a very, very, very brief rundown on each of the 5 types. But even just understanding a type can make such a difference to a person's life and a person's ability to make something of what it is that they are here to do. You know, met so many people over the years who've just spent their whole life fighting against who they are because not
Right.
because they want to, but because they've been conditioned to do that.
Right. And that's I think that starts right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing. And it begins that habit of self-doubt, perhaps lack of self-love, like why am I not like this, and questioning oneself, right? That's why it's so important to know this for our children. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's the power of understanding how your child is designed is something that it's absolutely invaluable in so many ways. And I'm certainly a testament to it myself with my own child, but I've witnessed so many other parents and the relief that they have initially, the relief that they have in understanding who it is that's come to live with them, who it is that has
Mm,
come to be under their guardianship, but also going forward over the years, and I've had the privilege of watching people that I've talked to, over the last 7, 8 years about their kids and their type, and watching them treat their children in a way that they really genuinely need to be treated. And
mhm.
it's made all the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Mm,
Mm.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so today, so knowing that, today I want to talk about business and finding success. So, for example, my husband is a generator, and it was really quite revelatory for him to discover he needs to respond because he's an idea guy. He's an idea guy. He puts out there, he coaches with people, and he has a couple different groups and things, and he would put things out there, right? But nobody asked him to. So,
Yeah.
and maybe it would have a modicum, like it never was really, I'm like, what? I don't understand. This is such a good idea. Why isn't this taking off? So it was really quite the revelation for him to learn that he needed to respond in that way. It really made a lot of sense. So I wonder how many people's lives could be made simpler just by knowing just a few things about how they put themselves into the world. But specifically with business, where do you think we should start with this? Like how do we design our careers and our work lives and our success and our whatever around our human design type?
Well, the first thing is, understanding how your energy works. So when you understand that you're a generator type and you have to respond to things, you stop pushing. You stop pushing. I mean, he's an ideas person. There's lots of energy in the chart for ideas. And one gate in particular that is all about ideas. And that's great. But if you're actually supposed to be waiting to respond, what do you do with all of these ideas?
Mhm.
So we come up with tactics, we come up with ways of being able to use these ideas. You're having, for a start, have an ideas journal, right? You write them down.
Okay.
If they're that good, if you really think that they're that good, you write them down. You know what? A lot of ideas aren't that good. A lot of ideas come into your head and they go flying out the back because that's exactly what's supposed to happen. A lot of them are fabulous. So write them down. And I'm very much, and I know you are too, Sasha, very much of the opinion that the law of attraction is a very, very powerful force in the world. And so if you are putting it out there to the universe that you have this idea And please, universe, bring me somebody that will allow me to use this
Mm,
idea.
mm,
Um, bring me a sign to show me that this idea is something that I need to be working with. Show me something to respond to around this idea. Now, if that comes to you, if the sign comes to you, if the person comes to you, if you know through response that this idea is something that you need to be working with, then it will show up for you. You can put a time limit on it. You can say, bring it to me before Friday.
mm.
Or you can say, over the next month, I want a sign. And by the way, universe, I want a good sign. I don't want one that I just
Right.
miss. I want one that I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or uh, or the universe will either bring that to you according to your stipulations, or it won't. Now, if it doesn't, that in itself is a sign. Don't do
Oh,
it.
right.
Don't
Right.
do it, because if you do it, it'll cost you time, money, or energy.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean to say that it won't bring you something later on outside of the rules that you've put in place, at which time you then respond to it and decide whether or not it's correct for you then. And, of course, you need to go into the details of exactly how to respond correctly. But um, it's, once again, it comes back to that gut reaction. Yeah, that's really what I want to be doing. What you'll find is likely to happen is, during that time while you're waiting, other things will crop up for you.
Mm,
And for generator types, it's particularly important that they're doing things that they really enjoy doing, that they're doing things that light them up, that
right.
make them feel happy. Because the thing with that generator energy is, it can work through drudge and sludge. It can work through boring, horrible work that it doesn't enjoy. It can work through that pain in the gut in the morning that it gets up with because it doesn't want to go to work. And yes, you might know by my ability to describe this that I have been through that myself.
I know. Oh,
It
me.
can do
Yeah,
it,
me
right? It
too.
can do it, but
Yeah.
it will burn it out eventually.
That's
And
me.
it
Yeah.
will, I hate to be, a bit morbid about it, but the fact is that the longer you do that kind of work, the more days of your life that you spend doing things that don't light you up, the shorter your life's going to be.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
So it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to make sure that we are doing work. And I'm talking about all types, not just the generator types. But it's really important that we're doing work that we love. We're doing what lights us up, because we're here to do what we love. And
Right.
that's one of the things that human design teaches us. And with the other types, with projectors, um, they, even more than generated types, need to be working on their vibration all the time, because that law of attraction kicks in. When your vibration's high, you would be amazed at the quality of the invitations that come your way. You would be amazed at the quality of the people that recognize you and want to work with you,
Mm,
want to invite you into their lives, want a piece of what you've got. So it's really, really important to keep your vibration high. I mean, that is really, for each and every one of us, the secret sauce that we don't spend enough time working with, especially when things are tough. They are
yeah.
tough. They really, at a 3D level, they're very tough.
Right.
We need to continually remind ourselves, and this is the work that we have at the moment, is to remind ourselves that, that isn't all there is, that we can simply remove ourselves from that 3D reality and work on raising our vibration. We only have this moment. We only have this moment. And if we are safe in this moment, if we are alive in this moment, then we can raise our vibration. And the next moment becomes better, and the next moment becomes better. And by raising our vibration, by keeping our frequency high, we attract into our lives the invitations that we need. We attract into our lives the things that we need to respond to. We attract beautiful people, beautiful things. I'm all
Mhm.
about beauty. I'm all
Yeah.
about surrounding ourselves with beauty. because to me, that's so high frequency and it can't help but impact your frequency. So that's kind of a broad brush across
Mhm.
you know, across all 5 types. Everyone has a specific way of doing business for themselves really well and understanding, what those numbers and those lines and those colored squares and triangles inside the body graph mean will help to fine tune that. But essentially, if you can keep your vibration high, you will bring into your life what it is that you need to have success.
Right, because that's just the way this realm works, right? Like it's frequency, it's energy. And when you really put your time, energy, and focus on that, things can change very quickly.
Very,
Problem
very
is
quickly.
there's so many distractions right now, right? So many
There is.
distractions, but
There
we
is.
don't have to fall prey to those distractions. We can really focus. So it's
No.
interesting. We have a group that my husband's been heading for 8+ years now, I think. And it's just a small group of us right now. There's five that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, mostly that are mostly right there right now. But every type is represented in that group.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So, and it's good because we get, we get very different perspectives of different things. And it's interesting because, that the not the project the reflectors I know are super low, but I have a good friend who's a reflector, and it makes a lot of sense, and she needs her time to be on her own to kind of separate what's hers and what's not hers, which is interesting.
May I speak very quickly on reflectors?
Sure.
Because I think it's important. So 1% of the population, 1 in 100, it's just slightly over. It's about 1.4 or something like that, in every 100 reflectors. And most people don't know about human design, but for those that do, we all know we're a reflector. In my world, and I run lots and lots of charts, and I run charts on everyone. I meet somebody and I want to know their birth details. I've got a ridiculous number of charts saved in my in my software, for personal use. I'm talking about here,
Yeah.
and the reflectors in my life are they're just so special. They're so special. There's something about their energy that when you sit with them, you start to be in a different frequency. You start to pick up on what's going on for them. And when a reflector is in a good space with good people, I say good, whatever that is, when they have people around them that are doing well, they are just lit up from within. And there's, I really love this, and I see this. A reflector, when they're in a good place, their face actually has a glow about it. It's like they're reflecting back our light. It's so beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if that's how you see your
Yeah.
friend.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's
there's
interesting.
something very beautiful about their energy.
So when it comes to business, then considering that a reflector needs a full moon cycle to make a big decision. Like I have a
Tough,
friend who
isn't
has
it?
a business, and she runs the charts of all her employees. Anybody she hires, she always is checking. And so she actually tries to work with them in concert with their human design chart. But what do you do when you have a reflection? You need to make decisions. I guess that can indicate where you would fit in, I guess, but how does that?
So the first thing you have to do if you've got a reflector is say, thank you. I'm so grateful to have this person in
Mm,
my workspace. Because they have the ability to show you what is going on. Um, they because they're taking in the energy of those people around them, of anyone that's around them, they can see the potential. So they can actually see the potential in everyone. It's you know, we mentioned it in the last podcast episode, I think, the not self themes and the not self
mm,
theme
mm,
of the reflector is disappointment. And the reason for that is because they can see how magnificent every person is, because they're kind of reaching into their energy, taking it out and amplifying it for themselves. So they can
Ah,
see what's
mhm.
going on. So that in itself is an incredibly valuable thing, to be able to see what's going on for other people. You need to make sure that you keep them healthy, because if they're not healthy, it's a reflection of what's going on around them. It's a reflection potentially of their workplace. You want to you use them as a barometer. You know, they're often called the canary in the coal mine.
Aha.
Um, yeah, uh, they do need alone time, as you mentioned before. And I know we're spending a lot of time talking about reflectors, but they are so important and so often left out, because we all know them, right? Even though we might not have run their charts, there will be people in our lives that we don't know are reflectors. And, you know, that's why it's very important to respect everybody, isn't it? Um, but you do need to give them that month to make an important decision. They by their very nature, they tend to be slower. They tend to do things more slowly than certainly than a generator, certainly than a manifesting generator.
Mhm.
But they tend to go about life a little bit slower. And if you want to invite them out for dinner, don't expect to get an answer straight away. In fact, if you've got a reflector friend and you want to invite them to a party, give them more than a month's notice. They need that time. And it's the same in business. And it's interesting when you a reflector gets offered a job and they need a month to make a decision to know whether it's correct for them. But magically, they're allowed to have that time.
No.
And if they aren't allowed to have that time, that job's not right for them.
Mm. Oh,
They need,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it's an energetic thing. It's
Right.
an energetic thing. The energy of the interaction between the reflector prospective employee and the employer is such that the time is allowed. If you need a month to make up your time, make up your mind, it's given.
Hmm.
And I also am a huge believer in the fact that it kind of starts when the interaction starts. So, and the same with projectors. Um, we talk about recognition. When and also indeed the same with generator types. When you are faced with making a decision, it kind of starts from then, right? Whether or not you're going to make the yes or no decision starts from then. So you go to the job interview and that's begun the process, or even you find out about the job and you don't have the job interview for a week, you're already just starting to make the decision. And so by the time you have the interview and then they get back to you, it might only be 2 weeks, but you've had that 2 weeks of anchoring into the
Mm.
moon for it to give you the answers, or anchoring into your emotional wave if you're emotionally defined. You have had that time already. So by the time you're actually faced with making the decision, you might only have a couple of weeks or 10 days or a week to actually say yes or no.
Right.
So it sounds
Right.
scary.
Right.
And I realize I'm using the example of a job interview, but it's amazing. You know, if you've got to make a decision on your feet, if you've got to make a decision in the moment, very often they're bad decisions. Very often, because
Ah,
remember, half of us are emotionally defined anyway.
right.
Um, but if
So
that's the way,
can you just say what let people know what that means? Just because that's
of
a big
course.
deal for a lot of people. So emotionally defined, just remind them.
So when you're looking at your human design chart, you'll notice there's a triangle about 2/3 of the way down on the right-hand side. There's also a triangle 2/3 of the way down on the left-hand side, but we're talking about the right-hand side one. That's what's known as the emotional solar plexus. And when you have that white, you're designed to make decisions in the moment. When you have it colored in and it's about a 50-50 split. When you have it colored in, you're designed to wait to make decisions, to at least sleep on it, but usually, particularly for big decisions, that's not enough. You might need a few days, you might need a week, you might need a couple of weeks, you might need longer. It will depend on all sorts of things. One of the things that will depend on is actually how you are emotionally defined. What gates you've got or what channels you've got coming off your emotions will tell you a little bit about what your wave looks like. But it's super important for people with that with that triangle colored in, to wait before they make decisions. And once again, like we were talking about with the reflectors, or we were inferring anyway, the world hasn't been set up that way, has it? And it makes
Oh,
you consider, why is it that we've got to this point where it's such a rat race, where we have to make decisions so quickly, where everybody's got to think on their feet. I mean, it's not about thinking, about feeling,
right.
but everybody's got to think on their feet and make decisions. I mean, it's no wonder we're in such a mess.
Mm. Hmm. Interesting. And does it make sense? Okay, are there partnerships that work better than other partnerships?
So the first thing to say to that is that you can make any partnership work, any partnership, any relationship work.
Okay.
The secret is for each of the partners to be working according to their strategy, to be doing things according
Okay.
to their
Makes
strategy.
sense.
Now, when I say you can make any partnership work, if one of the partners isn't happy, it's not going to work. It could be absolutely, you know, electromagnetically attracted in every way. You can have every one of your energy centers defined when we do the two chart, when we put the two charts together, or as we like to say, 8 and 1, which gives a little bit of leeway, which is kind of a nice way to go. So you might have between you 8 or 9 of the 9 energy centers colored in, which in traditional human design suggests that it's a very good hookup. But if one of you aren't happy, then it's not going to be. If one of you are out of alignment, if one of you is saying, I'm not meant to be doing this, or this
Right.
just doesn't feel right, then it's not going to work. But if you both are aligned with your human design strategy, if the work lights you up, makes you feel good, then it's going to be a great partnership. It's going to work really, really well. Um, and I guess the answer that you're really looking for is yes, of course. Yes, of course. There are beautiful relationships that look really great on paper and work out really well. I mean, I can give you a personal example, and it's not business related, but it really does explain beautifully how this works. My mother and father were married for 53 years until my mum passed away. 53, I think it's 53. My mum passed away a few years ago. And they, in their entire marriage, they got married when they were 21. They probably spent about 5 nights apart from each other in that whole time because
Wow.
of dad had to go to conferences and things. They were so bonded energetically. They were
Mm.
so bonded. They were absolute soulmates. And my father really struggled when my mum passed away because he'd lost his other half. And I do realise this is a personal story, but I think it's really interesting. Um, my mother was cremated. That was her wish, and the idea was that her ashes would be scattered. We, as a family, we'd get together and scatter her ashes at this particular place. And my father went to pick the ashes up about probably 4 months after she passed, and it had been an incredibly tough time for him. And I spoke to him that night, knowing what he was going to do that day, thinking that he was going to be in a mess that night. And he was a different person. He got her back,
Aw.
And I know that sounds really weird, but I experienced it. And then the next part was, well, now we've got to get rid of the ashes. And I said, no, 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 she
Aw.
stays. We'll deal with that down the track when we need to. You don't have to. She gets to stay with you. And his life changed from that point on. He still
Wow.
misses her every day. You know, this is 7 years ago now, and every day I speak to him, and every day he mentions her. But
Wow.
that was a perfect hookup, right? This is what I'm saying. That was a perfect match. Um, but I have seen beautiful relationships, stunning, beautiful lifetime relationships that aren't anywhere near that electromagnetically attractive to one another, and they work beautifully. So it's circumstances.
Right. Yes. There's a lot. And if people are more true to themselves just in general, I think they'll be flow because you're not depending. I feel like this has been a really good example these last few years of, people really depending on the good opinion of others and really betraying their own selves in so many different ways. And so when you don't betray yourself, when you're true to yourself, then that will just allow for relationships to flourish because you're not depending on changing yourself for anybody. And if we can all be true to ourselves and we accept each other that way, how could those relationships not be successful?
Exactly. And I know we're talking about human design here, and honestly, this when you go a bit deeper into it, you can see how these two are aligned. But the big thing, in my opinion, that every single one of us needs to be working on, because we have been deliberately removed from this, is being in our heart.
Mm,
If you come into your heart, if you make a decision from your heart, and yes, I know generators have this sacral, this gut energy that they use, but believe me, your heart and your gut, they love each other. They're working together.
right.
If you just go into your heart, forget about human design, forget about everything else, that every other piece of dogma that's trying to tell you how to do your life, forget about the conditioning. You just go into your heart. You'll know what's right. And if every one of us did that,
Right.
the
Oh,
world would
could you
be
imagine
very,
this world?
very different.
Oh, very different. Very, very different.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that's where peace is. Right? Peace is in your heart. Peace lives in your heart. And when you get out of this thing, this head, and you pull all of the energy down into your heart, all of a sudden you are in the moment. All of a sudden, nothing else really matters.
Mm,
And you know your truth. You know yourself. You know what is the next right move to make.
right.
I've
Right.
just thrown everything out the window, haven't I, as far as human design is concerned?
I
But
think they can
truly,
be
it's
very
all,
compatible.
they absolutely are.
Yeah,
They absolutely are.
exactly. Okay, so let's talk about like what are some specifics? So, what are some specific examples that will show us how we can apply our human design? And is there any way, say somebody has no idea what they want to do, could your human design type lead you into your purpose somehow? Could it
Oh yeah.
reveal things? Yeah.
Yes, and that's a lot of the work that I do, is helping people to see, what
Okay.
their life purpose is.
Ah,
We
okay.
also want to know, don't we?
Yeah.
Um, so when you look at that chart that you've got in front of you, if you're watching this, hopefully by now, you'll see that there's a whole lot of numbers and some strange looking symbols. If you're not an astrologer, there'll be strange looking symbols. They're actually glyphs that represent planets and objects, and they represent the objects and where they were at the time of your birth. So it's geometry at work here. This is how
Mm,
the chart gets created, through geometry. And there are certain places in the chart, there are certain planets and objects that can really help you to determine what your life purpose is. So in particular, the black numbers and the red numbers. So the black numbers are usually on the right-hand side, always as far as I'm concerned, and the red
Mm,
numbers are on the left-hand side. And both sets of numbers are equally important, even though they're quite different. The black numbers are what we call the conscious energies. The red numbers are what we call the unconscious energies. The top two sets of numbers, the sun and the earth numbers in your bank of numbers, if you like, in the chart numbers, are going to tell you a huge amount about yourself, a huge amount about yourself and what you're here to do. They're known as the incarnation cross numbers. Now, I don't necessarily get bogged down in what is your incarnation cross? That will tell you exactly what you're here to do, but it will give you a very, very good guide. It's kind of the filter through which you do everything in your life. So those four numbers are really, really important, and you can't help but feel the energies that they bring.
mhm.
There's also some other places in the chart that I think are just as important for people who are looking for those answers, who are looking for the answer. What is it that I'm supposed to be doing? I love Neptune. The planet Neptune is this beautiful spiritual energy, but it also tells us what it is we are here to do to serve others, to serve humanity, to serve other people, and get compensated for it. So, I don't want to say and get paid for it, but I often do. It's what you're here to do to make the world a better place and to
Mhm.
make your own world a better place, because you're going to be, kept for it.
Right.
So Neptune's very, very important in giving you that information. But all of the planets are really, really, all of the planets, all of the numbers, no matter where they show up, are going to speak about you in a different way. But it's really valuable. If you look at those top four numbers, the top two red numbers and the top two black numbers, and then you go down to the bottom, and in most charts, Neptune is the second from the bottom. It's the trident, Neptune's
Right.
trident.
Yeah.
If you go down to Neptune and look there, you'll see the sometimes they're the same number. Sometimes you'll find the two Neptune numbers are the same, but those numbers are what will tell you, give you a big clue about what it is you're here to do to make money.
Mhm.
But not only to make money, more importantly, to make the world a better place.
Which is a good way to make money. I mean, it's fair exchange, right? To
Right.
be well compensated for making the world a better place. So that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Excellent. And so one thing we talked about is, say somebody's an entrepreneur and they have to set up, and first of all, are some types more suited towards entrepreneurial work than others, rather than being an employee? Like, I hate being an employee. I hated that when I worked I wanted to stab my eyes out for 10 years, just, whoa. So is it more the nature of the work?
Look, I honestly believe that those people who are awake to their own sovereignty, and you can be any human design type and be awake to your own sovereignty, are going to struggle to work in the system. They're going to
Right.
struggle to work for
Right.
someone else, unless that someone else they're working for is, very awake themselves. I mean, I have a beautiful friend who is very awake, who works in the corporate world and loves it, does not want to
Mhm.
work anywhere else, does not, and she understands and gets bombarded regularly with the politics and all of that sort of thing, but she's able to um, protect herself from it. She's able to rise above it. She's able to hold a frequency that actually affects those people that are working around her. And she's so adored by, the higher ups, because they know that if they give her something to do, she can manage. She's a generator type, by the way, a pure generator. Um, and so so projectors struggle to work for someone else very often. And there's an irony involved in that as well, because it can be tough to be a projector and be an entrepreneur because you're needing to be invited, right? You've got to get yourself recognized so that you get invited.
Right.
Once again, it comes back to the energy. It comes back to your energy, to your frequency. The most successful projectors I've ever come across have invariably been high frequency beings. They've been somehow or other high frequency from the get-go, and they've managed to attract people into their world. And when I say managed to, there hasn't been a whole lot of effort involved in it. It's just magically happened for
Yeah,
them.
I have a
And
friend like
so,
that. Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
they're able
and I
to
could
do
say I would
anything.
think that once they did get that invitation, then watch out, because then they can
Yeah,
shine, right? Then they can bring it in, and that could would
yeah,
lead to more invitations. I would.
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
A lot of, a lot of, and I very careful, and I'm almost reluctant to say this, but I'm going to say it because you asked. A lot of manifesting generators are entrepreneurs um, because they have the energy, right? It can be exhausting
Right.
being an
Yeah, yeah,
entrepreneur,
yeah,
and
yeah.
particularly when you're not following your strategy. When you're pushing, you need that energy to push. I mean, I can't tell you the number of burnt out manifesting generator entrepreneurs I've worked with over the years. And when I
Mm,
say burnt out, I mean people who have been working in an unaligned fashion to the point that it's worn them out and they're burnt out. They're sick, they're blocked, they're stuck, they're just not, things aren't flowing for them. And that's a, absolutely a sign of burnout. So it doesn't really matter what type you are as long as you are following your strategy and your authority. And as long as you are in a high frequency, you can do anything you want to, and you can absolutely be an entrepreneur. If there's no other message that comes out of today, it's keep your frequency high.
mm.
And then if
Okay.
there's another energy, it's get really familiar with your strategy and authority from a human design perspective, because it makes I can't even explain. I can't even um, put into words how much of a difference it makes when you are following your strategy and authority. Just life just flows, makes it easy.
And so maybe we can quickly touch on what specifically, I'm sure people, if they haven't listened to the first interview, they're like, okay, what does that mean? What's my strategy? What's my authority?
Okay, so first of all, the strategies. Each of the 5 types have a different strategy. The 2 generators, the first thing that's super important for each of the 2 generator types, which is nearly 70% of us, the strategy is to wait for something to show up in their external reality. If you're a pure generator type, when that thing shows up for you, you ask your gut. We call it asking your sacral in human
Mhm.
design language. You ask your gut, should I do this? If your gut makes this sound, which is it comes from the gut and goes up the vagal nerve and out of your mouth. If it goes uh-huh, then you know that that's for you. If it goes you know it's not. Okay. If it says just drop it. Don't do it. It's not for you. At least not now. It might be a matter of timing. It might come back to you
Right.
later on down the track. If it says if you are emotionally undefined, that is, that emotional solar plexus we were talking about is white, then you get to make that decision in the moment and go ahead and do it. If it's colored in, if the emotional solar plexus, sorry, that's my dog looking. If the emotional solar plexus is colored in, then you need to wait. You need to get up tomorrow morning and ask yourself the same question again. Should I do it? Okay, I've got a yes again. And then kind of feel into that and say, well, do I know for sure that that's right? That's where it gets a little complex. And there are sort of ways of working with this, but you really need to be sure that you get a consistent aha over the period of your wave, whether it be the next day you wake up and you get the aha and you go, yes, 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 I know this is correct. Or I think I need another couple of days to sit on
Right.
this, or I need even a month to sit on it. I can tell you I'm emotionally defined. I have waited for 3, 4, 5, 6 months on something
Wow. Oh,
before
okay.
I've got clarity. I know that probably doesn't make people feel happy, but it works, and it makes your life a whole lot easier
Sure.
when you soak into it and you know that it's great. So that's the generator type. Okay. Uh-huh. Something to respond to. Should I do it? Uh-huh. Yep. Go ahead and do it, notwithstanding the emotional wave if you need to wait. Manifesting generators, it's more complex. Manifesting generators, they see something in their outside of their minds, in their external reality to respond to. They ask their sacral if they should do it. Before that, let me take it back. They see something in their external reality, and before they ask their sacral if they should do it, they they go up into their head. It's one of the few times we allow that kind of behavior in design. Being
Yeah.
very dogmatic, aren't I? You go up into your head and you envision what that might look like. What that does is not only does it envision allow you to see whether it's a good thing to do, but it actually slows you down because manifesting generators go very fast.
Yeah.
Slows you down, that envisioning process. What would that look like? Okay. Then you ask your sacral, should I do it? Uh-huh. Or uh-uh. Okay. And remember, it's your sacral talking, not your mind. You'll know
Right.
if what comes out of your mouth is a surprise to you. Okay. If it's a surprise, then you know that you're on the right track. If it's a surprise, even though intellectually might think you know that you want to do it, and you still get a yes from your gut, but you get that feeling of, oh, my gut said yes, you know you're on the right track. But if your brain comes into it, your brain can make you make the sound aha quite easily. So you've got to get out of your head. And
Right.
this goes for pure generators as well. So you need to respond to something in your or see something in your external reality, envision what it might look like, ask your gut, is it correct? If your gut says yes, then you need to tell everybody what it is you're about to do because you're a manifesting generator. And part of your strategy is to inform. So you're telling everybody what it is that you're going to do, who is going to be affected by what it is that you're about to do. Because if you don't, they'll either get really angry with you, they'll get in your way and try and stop you from doing it, or it just won't go very well. Okay, what you're doing is you're aligning everyone's energy with what it is that you're about to do. And when I say tell, I mean tell, I don't mean ask. They will get out of your way. They will, or they'll ask you, that sounds fantastic. Can I come and help you? And you can say no to that too if your sacral tells you to. But it's so important that you would do that informing piece. It's changed my life. Informing has changed my life as a manifesting generator. And the last piece is you just go ahead and do it. So that's the manifesting generator. Of course, if you're emotionally defined, you still need to wade through
No
your
way.
wave.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we have the projector. The projector needs, if they just need to wait for an invitation to do something. They will get the invitations from people who recognize them. And when I say recognize, it's somebody that you feel like they get me, they know me, they're here for my, for my highest and best. And it might not even be, that much, but you feel into their energy and you know that they recognize you. We get invitations all the time in our emails, don't we?
Oh,
Invitations
yeah.
to join
Yeah.
masterclasses and all that sort of thing. But that person who's sending the invitation doesn't necessarily recognize you. But you might feel in their energy, in the energy of the email, that they do recognize you. And
Oh,
so that's something for you to consider. So that is how a projector will be invited, is through that recognition piece. And it's something that often gets left out of the whole projectors waiting to be invited. It can be very it can be very, I don't want to use the word frustrating because that goes with generators, but it can be troublesome for projectors who are sitting there waiting for invitations. The idea is that you don't just sit and wait. The idea is that you go and do things that you love to do, things that are going to raise your vibration. Projectors usually love learning. They usually love taking on new knowledge and really getting in deep with whatever it is that they're passionate about.
Mhm.
And just by doing that, they're raising their frequency and they're attracting those people who will recognize them into their lives, those opportunities for invitations into their lives. So, once again, if you're a projector and you're emotionally defined, you need to wait through your emotional wave. And
Right.
I'll explain what that means. Actually, I will now before. Oh, no, I'll do manifestors and then I'll explain why that might be the case. Manifestors, they need to feel into their body when they get an idea, and they can use an idea from their head. But the idea might come from their head or it might come from their external reality. It doesn't really matter. But they need to then go within. They need to then go inside and use their authority to make the decision. So if they are emotionally defined, they need to sit on that idea for however long they need to sit on it, the next day or the next week or the next month. And then they get to go and do it. And they are the only type that can just do it. You know, there's a joke in
Right.
human design circles that the Nike ad was written by a
Yeah.
manifestor. Just yeah, it's okay for 10% of the population.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The rest of the population can't. The manifestor, once they've decided that they're going to do something, then they need to inform. Okay, that's the
Mhm.
golden rule for manifestors. They need to tell people what they're doing, because if they don't, other people will get angry with them. Other people will get in their way. They will do everything they can to stymie whatever it is that the manifestor is going to do. It can look like all sorts of things. It just won't flow if they don't inform those around them. You know, it's like the little manifestor kid that decides to go for a walk down to the end of down to the end of the road without telling their parents.
Right.
If they tell their parents, if the parent knows they've got a manifestor child, they'll let them go. I'm not saying they won't peek around the corner to make sure they're okay every now and then, because that's what a parent does, but they'll know that the manifestor child will be fine if that's what the manifestor child wants to do. But if the manifestor child doesn't inform or doesn't, we like to teach parents to ask their children, manifested children, to ask permission, because that teaches them to inform in later life. If they don't ask permission, then it all goes haywire, doesn't it? I mean, the parents have called the police and, you know, the child gets into big trouble and all of that sort of thing. That's a beautiful example of that. And that informing piece, you'll note the manifesting generator and the manifestor. The manifesting generator has a channel that's a manifestor channel, and that's why they also have to inform.
Right.
It's a very important piece of the puzzle. And as I was saying, the emotional definition is the emotional authority. So there's several different authorities, but the one that half of us have is the emotional authority, and that just means the waiting piece. There's
Right.
seven, I think seven other different authorities that fit into the other half. One
Okay.
of them is splenic authority, where you just get to make decisions in the moment. And there's mental authority, and there's self-projected authority, and there's ego authority. There's a whole lot of different authorities. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel, which is Isbel Human Design, on the authorities, and I can give you the link, Tasha, if you
Yes,
like.
please. We'll put that
Um,
in the notes for sure.
and it's got the timestamps on each of the different authorities. So once you
Perfect.
realise what your authority is, you can just pop in and have a look at that one. Although if you've got other people around you with different authorities, it's a good idea to see what theirs is as well. So it's good. It's a really important thing, the authority. It's just another one of those little, you know, pieces of information that add up to, you know, the complete puzzle, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we've got the reflectors, and the reflectors' authority is to wait a full lunar cycle to make a decision. And you know what? Sometimes it's more than one lunar cycle, isn't it? But it is. Sometimes it's 2 or even 3 lunar cycles. The best advice I can give a reflector, if you happen to be a reflector, is to find other reflectors. Find other reflectors,
Mm.
particularly reflectors who know that they're reflectors, because it can be, I think it can be a bit of a lonely ride once you find out, ironically, that you are a reflector. But when you know that there's other people out there and they're doing it and they're smashing it out of the park every day because they really fully embrace and own who they are, then their life, becomes amazing. Their energy becomes shiny and vibrant and beautiful and
Nice.
properly utilized.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's and is there a strategy for reflectors?
So, their strategy is simply to wait the lunar cycle. They can,
Okay,
um,
that's strategy
they
and
they
authority.
kind of need to be recognized and invited, but they don't, right? They do, but they don't. That sounds very wishy-washy. If a reflector decides they want to do something, they need to wait. They need to wait through the lunar
Okay,
cycle. The end of the lunar cycle will tell them whether they should do it or not.
everything. Okay.
Yeah, and what they'll find invariably, I'll say that's a big statement to make, but what they will find in most cases is that the decisions that they make will come, but particularly I'm talking about the big decisions here, not the little. You don't have to wait a lunar cycle to do the washing, right? Unfortunately, you don't. You don't have to wait a lunar cycle to make a meal or
Yeah.
anything like that. Talking about the big decisions here. What they'll find is that most of the decisions that they make, most of the things they take action on, will come because people have recognized them and invited them.
Right. Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, it's kind
Okay.
of
No, that's great. No, that's good. So that's a great little summary of that. And I can it's just little bits, just a little shift can be super insightful. Okay, so now to some specifics. So when it comes around business, we were talking about finding a price. Some people are very good for pricing their offer, for example, taking it, asking for it, and other people don't. Other people, and there could be other self devaluation type of things going on in them. But how does one, are there different ways? Like, let's talk some specifics. Let's talk about pricing because that's a big one for a lot of
it is.
people.
It's huge. It's huge.
Hmm.
Right. So when you look at that human design chart you've got in front of you, you will notice that there is a little triangle about, I'm going to say about a third of the way down, maybe a little bit more than a third of the way down, on the right-hand side in the middle of the chart. Okay, it's called the ego center or the will center. It's got a few names. But I actually like to call it the will center, the center for willpower and value. And it's a very, very important center. It's actually related to the heart, very much related to the heart. Some people even call it the heart center. I think Ra Uruhu, the guy that downloaded Human Design
Yeah.
in the first place, I think he called it the heart most of the time.
Okay.
And this particular center it's not all that common to have it defined. About 70% of the population have it white or open,
Okay.
and 30% of the population have it defined. When you have it defined, one of the things about you is that you know your own value. And so you can be very, very good at pricing what it is that you have to offer. You don't really need to ask for outside help on pricing your offering. When you fall into the other 70% of the population and you have it white, you don't know your own value.
Mhm.
You don't know what you're worth. And I often say, with 70% of the population not knowing their own worth, it's no wonder in such a mess. Yeah,
True.
human design
Really
it
true.
explains so
Yeah.
much, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But really, we I say we because I have an open will sector. We don't know our own worth. And so we don't know how much something that we have is actually worth to other people.
Mm-hmm.
What we do know is what other people's things are worth,
Right.
because that's what we're really good at doing. We're good with our open will center, our open center for self value, self worth. To We're really good at using that center to look into other people and see what they're worth, and then amplify that information for ourselves. But we're no good at knowing what we worth. So the golden rule there is, if you have a defined will center, you know how to price yourself. If you've got a white will center, then you need to ask someone else. It doesn't matter whether they have a defined will center or an open will center. When I say open,
No,
it's the same
okay.
thing as white or undefined. I'm sorry, we get tripped up in the language quite often with human design, which is one of the reasons why it's so complex, because there's so many different terminologies for the same thing. But if you have a white will center, you need to ask someone else how much something is that
Mm,
you are offering is worth. You can have an idea. You can, use your sacral if you have a defined sacral. If you're a generator type, you can ask your sacral whether it's worth X amount. Is this offering worth $250? And you might get an aha. But I strongly, strongly advise you to ask someone else as well. Someone with some knowledge is a good idea of what it is that you're offering. To say, look, is this a reasonable amount? Am I charging enough? Because most of the time we're undercharging.
right.
Sometimes we will overcharge, sometimes, and you've got to be prepared to hear that as well.
Okay.
But it's important to realize that we are not designed 70% of us are not designed to know what it is that we do is worth. We're not designed to know how much we should get paid. We work we work as an employee, and we don't even know how much we should get
Right.
paid.
Right.
So once again, we really need to value ourselves. Once you get a feel for it with that open will center, once you get a feel for what you're worth, you can sort of play along with it. You don't necessarily have to check in on everything. But I can tell you that so many people who undercharge for their services, well, it would be by far the majority of people who undercharge for their services are people with open will centers.
Right. Right. Okay.
And surprisingly, those people who overcharge too. Um, and I did want. I hope I'm not sort of talking over you here, Sasha. But I did want to say something,
Mhm.
and I say this with all the love in the world. It's kind of related to what we just spoke about then. Um, but manifestors, because manifestors can do whatever they want as long as it feels right in their body, you will find that a lot of the people out there who are telling you to do things in a particular way are manifestors. A lot of those highly successful entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs, are manifestors.
Yeah.
And they will find in many cases that 10%, maybe even slightly higher because of the law of attraction, of their clients get brilliant results. And that's enough to get brilliant testimonials. That's enough to get brilliant word of mouth out,
Right.
because 10% of their clients are manifestors. And so their manifestor way that they're teaching works for 10% of their clients. There,
Mhm.
and there are some incredible manifestors out there who know how to use their energy, who know how to teach others in ways that work for everybody. And there are some others who aren't doing it. And I don't even say that they're doing it maliciously. Most of them don't know they're manifestors. Most of them don't know that not everyone can do it their way.
Right.
Does that make sense? I don't, you know, it's a
Totally.
it's
Well,
a
that
walking on eggshells a little bit, but,
yeah,
it's the
well,
truth.
that's the thing why when you look at all these people, like, this is the way it's done. There's all these people telling you, this is how you create your funnels. This is how you do your marketing. This is how you do this. Well, yeah, that works for you because that's who you are. And so people can copy that. And like you said, you can have a percentage of people that get the exact same result and many others who will not.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's the danger, I guess, when we think we've got it, but we've
yeah,
got it for some people. We
yeah,
can share it for some people,
yeah.
right? So
It's
yeah,
so important.
that makes sense.
When you come across somebody online who is selling you the golden egg, you really need to check in with your own strategy and authority to make sure that this golden egg is actually for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that manifester might be for you.
Right,
They might have a nugget that changes your life. It might not even be their main strategy that they're teaching that changes your life. It might be something else. And for that very reason, you get the go ahead from your strategy to do it.
right,
But what you will find in many cases is that it's not for you. It never was for you.
right. Yeah.
And it's so important. It will save you so much money and so much time. And of course, so much energy.
Right, for sure, for sure. Okay, so what other specifics, what other, before we finish it, just some, is there anything else that can be very clear about where, how you can enhance your success or improve your business, or is there anything else other than say pricing? That's a very specific thing to look at.
So, so, and this is very broad again, and I just want to say it again as an overarching thing. The frequency thing is vital. The frequency thing is vital. And looking at your chart and seeing the sorts of things that make you feel happy um, are going to raise your frequency. So little things like, I can give you some really specific things. If you happen to have the gate 22 in your chart, and the gate 22 comes off the emotional solar plexus on the right hand side of the chart, heads up towards the throat, up towards the head area. You'll find it there. If you've got that defined in your chart, and by the way, we all have all of the chart. It's just when it's defined, you get
Right,
to experience
right.
it in a very consistent, reliable way. The gate 22 is, amongst other things, the gate of beauty. So surrounding yourself in
Mm,
beauty, and it's also very aligned with sound and music. It's surrounding yourself in what you find to be beautiful. So whether that be beautiful music, beautiful sounds, beautiful art, beautiful gardens, beautiful colors, beautiful clothes, whatever that happens to be for you, will raise your frequency, and believe it or not, will bring more abundance into your life, more clients, more success, more opportunities into your life. So that is the gate 22. We've got the gate 48, which comes off the spleen energy center, which is the opposite of the emotional solar plexus on the left hand side of the chart. The spleen energy center has a gate coming off it, the gate 48, which is on the far left hand side of the chart, heading up once again up towards the throat. And the gate 48 is the gate of depth and detail. It's a detail oriented energy that just loves the sort of kind of the dotting of the I's and the crossing of the T's and picking up the spelling mistakes and making sure that everything is perfect. It likes everything to be properly done. Um, and when you know that you've got that energy, you know that that kind of depth and detail is what's going to raise your frequency. Yeah, you don't want to gloss over things. You want to go deep. You want to
mhm.
know as much as you can know. And you also want to know when to stop needing to know when excuse me, when you know enough, but having an understanding of your chart to that level can make a huge difference. There's another energy. I mean, I could talk about all 64 of the energies in this
Right.
way, but there's another energy that comes off the spleen and heads towards the will center. It's the gate 44. So the gate 44, amongst other things, is the gate of smell, right? When you've got the gate 44, you've usually got a really good sense of smell.
Oh,
Now, you could use that to know that um, anything to do with the sense of smell is going to enhance your life experience and perhaps your work experience. Like, for example, I have the Gate 44. I absolutely adore fragrances, essential oils. I just love beautiful. I've got the 22 as well. I love I love beautiful smells. I love things, and they enhance my life. They make me work better. Um, but it's much more than that. It's a bigger energy than that. It's what we call clair olfactants. It's being able to
wow. Claire
be
olfactant.
intuitive through smell. You've heard the saying that doesn't smell right.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I'm being very specific here, but having an understanding of each of those energies and the ones that you in particular have defined
Yeah.
in your chart,
Right.
notwithstanding the fact that you can still have a great sense of smell and have an open or an undefined gate 44.
Right.
Um, but if you have it defined, you're going to really experience it in a very specific, in your way, like the way that you're designed to experience it. So there's so many places in the chart. Another one that's interesting in it, perhaps a different way, once again coming off the spleen, is the gate 32. And this gives you an example of how understanding your chart can really help you to pinpoint and and there's no chart that tells you what you're supposed to do. I can't look at a chart and say you should be a train driver.
Right. Right.
I can't do that. That's not what the chart's about.
Right.
But I can say you've got, the capacity to, sit quietly for long periods of time, which is something a train driver might need to do. Um, um, but seriously, the gate 32 comes off the spleen also. I'm talking a lot about splenic gates, mainly coincidentally. Um, so the gate 32 goes down towards the root center, which is the square at the bottom of the chart. And the gate 32 is the gate of one of its many um, energies, is knowing what businesses to go into. It really has this amazing ability to know what career, what business is, or work opportunity is worth pursuing.
Mm.
Now, interestingly, it's not very good at knowing what work opportunities, business opportunities are good for itself.
Oh,
We call it
okay.
projected energy, right? It's not very good at knowing what's good for itself unless it's following its strategy, okay? Unless that opportunity turns up for it
Right.
according to its strategy. However, it's very good at knowing what other people should be doing. So if the gate 32 is sitting down having a cup of coffee with its best friend and its best friend says, I don't know what I should do with my life. I really would love to be an interior decorator, but I also want to be a naturopath. The gate 32 will say, honey, you should be a naturopath. That would be the best thing for you because they just know. They just have
Right.
this knowing of what other people should be
Interesting.
doing.
Oh,
And so, I often say it's a great energy for a careers advisor or for maybe a human resources
right.
person. And look, it's very corporate way of,
Yeah.
and I don't
But
think we're moving way away from that. But it's really good as mentoring energy.
that's what I was going to say, as a mentor or,
Yeah,
somebody who has influence around people in some way that can help
exactly.
guide them. Yeah, that makes
Exactly.
a lot of sense that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
those sorts of things show up in the chart. I mean, we talked about your husband being an ideas person. The gate 11 that comes off the ajna, which is the triangle. So there's two triangles in the head area.
Yeah.
There's the top one, which is called the head energy center, and then there's the bottom one, which is the upside down triangle, if you like.
Yeah.
If it's defined, it's colored in green. If it's not, obviously it's white. But there's a gate that comes off the ajna on the right-hand side called the gate 11, which is the gate of ideas. And
Oh, I
so,
gotta look at his chart.
yeah,
Oh,
so these people they have so many ideas. Now, remember we said that those ideas are not to be acted on by the person that owns the gate 11. Once again, it's a projected energy. If that idea shows up for them according to their strategy, go for it. Absolutely, go for it. If you get the green light from your strategy and authority. However, those ideas can be used for other
Ah,
people, your clients. I don't know what I
yes.
should do. Well, you strike me as somebody who'd be good at this and this and this and this and this because you've got all
Yeah.
of the ideas, or you've got so many ideas that people will seek you out for your ideas. You know, um, I'm going to come to you because you are an ideas person. You're somebody that I know is going to be able to help me in this
Right.
area, in this space, because they're energetically feeling into your aura and they sense that gate 11 energy. They don't know what they're sensing, but they sense it.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. I'm gonna check that because he does do that for his clients to some degree as well. You can definitely see things. He's got it at that gate. I'm gonna check that one. Can't remember. We've
And
got
if
our
he
charts
doesn't have it
printed out.
yeah, if he
Pardon?
doesn't have that, another thing just to, because people immediately go away and they
Yeah.
check the 32 or they check the, and they
Yeah.
say, I'm good at that, but I don't have it. Check the other side of it as well. You might find, so
Okay.
the the channel that runs between the ajna and the throat, which is where we're talking about at the moment,
Yeah.
that comprises the gate 11 and the gate 56.
Okay.
And gate 56 obviously is the other end. If you have that defined,
Yeah.
but the gate 11 open, and this goes for every one of the channels and their respective gates, if you
Okay.
have that defined, you're going to be constantly amplifying the gate 11. So you've got the 56,
Oh,
and the
okay.
56, just by its very nature, is always electromagnetically hunting out that gate 11. And every time it comes across it, it's finding it, and it's going, and it's making sparks of ideas. So that's
Mm,
happening all the time in your chart with every one of your hanging gates. And when we say hanging gates, we're talking about a gate that's on its own that doesn't have its matching
right.
mate to
Right.
make the whole channel.
It's not
So
building.
everywhere you've got a hanging gate, the other end of it is always looking for for its buddy, for its mate. And so it's always at every opportunity it gets, amplifying the energy of that open gate when it comes into its base.
So there's so much to learn. Oh my God. And there's so much, like, it could just tell, like, how much when we read my chart, I know that there's just so much you could go into. And is there more to that than just that one chart? Are there other pages, or that's the basic
Look,
thing? And then,
that's where you want to be living certainly in the early stages. And there are other charts. There's sleep charts and there's progressed charts and
okay,
there's
right.
life cycle charts. There's solar return charts, which are amazing. You can have a
Wow.
solar return reading done, which will tell you what the year ahead has in store for you,
Oh,
which is
okay.
really valuable from a business
Wow.
perspective as well.
Yeah.
Have a solar return. You do that in the lead up to your birthday. So in the 3 months lead up to your birthday,
Okay.
you
Okay.
you can have a solar return reading, and it will tell you what the year ahead kind of has. Not it's not about you personally, it's about what's coming at you, the energies of the people around you, and the global energies, if you like, what they will be that are coming towards you and the themes that you'll be working in. So that's really cool. yes, there are other charts, but the body graph that you and I know,
Yeah,
the main body graph that you'll run if you go to my body graph, that's the one that will tell you so much about yourself.
right.
Um, once you've sort of got bored with that, and I can tell you that takes quite a while, there are definitely other charts to look at.
Right, right. Okay, so for anybody who is curious as to what it would look like to work with Roz with you, how does that look? So your website is findyournaturalgroove.com,
My
correct? And you're so
Yeah,
you
and
tell me
there's
all your things where people can find you.
sure. So if you go to findyournaturalgroove.com, you'll find loads of free stuff. Like there's lots of information. There's links to my YouTube channel, which you can go straight to YouTube if you want to. And that's got lots of information in there as well. You can book sessions in there. So I run personal sessions. I run business sessions. Business by design or doing business by design. I run family sessions. I do solar return sessions as well, which are becoming more popular, which is wonderful because they're so much
Mm.
fun. Um,
Mm.
so you can find lots of information there. I've got a blog as well. So there's some things you can read up on if you're a reading type. Human design tells you whether you're a reading type or a listening type or a
Mm.
watching type. Um,
Where do you see that? I'm curious about that
Usually
one.
it's a circuitry information. It's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
complex. You've got to look at the chart and say, well, you're going to be somebody, but
Oh, okay.
you might. Well, I've already given a hint today. The gate 22
Yeah,
is to do with sound. And so if you have the gate 22
right.
or its opposite on the other side, the gate 57, the gates of the left and the right ear, 22 is the left, the 57 is the right, they usually do really well listening to things. And that's one of the reasons
Mm.
why when I do a client session, when we do a reading, I send you a copy of the video of our session so that you've got the body graph in front of you when we share
Right.
screen and see where I'm pointing and you can look at things. But I also send you a copy of the audio that you can just download to your phone so that you can listen to it when you're out walking, because so many of us, and you don't just have to have the 57 and the 22, there's lots of other channels that are auditory channels as well, or auditory gates and channels. But I try and give everybody the best opportunity to get as much information as they can, because some people like to listen, some people like to watch, and some people love to read. They need to see the words on the paper. That's why I still, sporadically, I should do it more often. And I've got the gate 15, which is the gate of inconsistency, amongst other things. But
Oh,
I still write blog posts because
funny.
I know that a lot of people get so much value out of them. And I write my emails as well. So you can sign up to my email list.
Okay.
Um, and when you do that, you'll receive a downloadable page which you need to read, which is mini guide to the 5 human design types. So it actually goes into more detail on this one page than I went into with you
Right.
today,
Right.
on each of the 5 types. So if you go to findyournaturalgroove.com, you'll
Yeah.
find all of the information there. But I'm also on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I use Instagram very much as a teaching tool. So there's lots
Mm-hmm.
of information you can learn from Instagram. I've got the Facebook page, got the YouTube channel. I've got all of the usual
It's all
suspects.
it's Find Your Natural Groove on Facebook as well.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Find Your
Okay.
Natural Groove
Okay.
is on
Because
Facebook.
I so I see you on Instagram. Okay. Okay,
Yes.
good. And so somebody can sign up and they can decide which way they want to go from there and talk to you and find out.
And by the way, this is important in this day and age. I charge in Australian dollars.
Right. And to, yeah,
And
remind
we
you,
live
right?
in a bit of a banana republic. So
Yeah,
our dollar is not worth anywhere near as much as the US dollar is. So,
definitely not the US dollar, not even close. Right. So that can be definitely an
so
easier buy-in for some people.
yeah,
I think we're pretty similar, the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar. I think that's,
too.
yeah, but the US dollar definitely. an advantage there.
Hard work, isn't it, when you're paying all of your bills in US dollars? So I've made a very deliberate decision. I made the decision a few years ago to start charging in Australian dollars. It just didn't sit with me right to charge in US. So there you go.
Mm,
That's what I do.
okay.
So when you look at the pricing on my page, depending on where you live, of course,
Right.
please know that it's not US, it's Australian.
Okay. Fair. It's good to know. Good to
Yeah.
know. Okay, we're an hour and a half in. We're this perfect. So, is any last words, Roz? What do you think the world needs to hear from? I know you said we need to come from our heart for sure and our frequencies. Is there anything else from a human design perspective that people could benefit from hearing right now?
Look, the frequency piece is always the flag I wave. You know, it's huge when you raise your frequency, it just changes your life. But understanding who you are, when you look at that human design chart and you realize who you are and how you're designed to operate without any of the conditioning that we have had foisted upon us through our entire lives. And even
Mhm.
today, it's still really difficult, no matter how awake and aware you are, to avoid. Just by living here, we live, you know,
Yeah.
in a conditioning field. We live with the overhead power lines. We live with the Wi-Fi. We live with all, and they're all conditioning fields. Understanding who you are from a human design perspective is in itself a frequency raising thing to do for yourself.
Mm. Mm.
So, you know, I know I'm totally indoctrinated. I'm totally, you know, sold. I'm so incredibly passionate about human design because of the changes that it's brought to me and to so many people that I know and have worked with. But you know, until you actually get to experience it, it's difficult to realize
Right.
what it can do for you.
Right.
And it's an evolution too. It moves with you, it changes with you. As you change, you start to see more deeply into it. You learn to love yourself for
Mm.
who you are.
Mhm.
And there's just not enough of that going on at the
No,
moment.
there is not. You are correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for our children,
Oh
that
gosh.
is such a big thing too. That is just one of the closest things to my heart. Is just for our
Yeah.
children. Let's observe them. Let's see what are they naturally, innately doing, and why are we trying to condition them out of it? And it's probably all there in their chart.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah,
all
it's all there.
it's all there.
Oh, so fun. Thank you, Roz. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you. And I know a lot of people are going to benefit from this and some really interesting insights. Like, yeah, and I know there's just probably so many other things that can be told from that chart that I would have no idea that that kind of information would come through. But it's so interesting. We're not an accident. We aren't, we're not just random, right? Like the stage was set when we came into this world.
We are each an integral piece of the puzzle as well. Like we are each so vital. And the sooner each one of us is, you know, being true to ourselves, the sooner everything changes. And it will happen. It will happen. It's it's slated to happen. It's happening. Maybe next time we can talk about the 2027, what's happening in 2027.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'll bring that up
Okay,
right.
you got me. You got me. Okay. Okay, guys. Well, if you are intrigued about this, check out Roz's work. You can find her all over the place. I'll have all the links in the show notes. Reach out to her if you feel that that's something that can serve you, your family, your business, anything like that. Because I know this just sometimes these little tweaks, these little awarenesses can change your whole trajectory. Right. So thank you, Roz. I really, really appreciate your time today.
Oh, I appreciate it.